Now, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana doesn't believe that South Africa's genocidal intent case against Israel will count against the country at the World Economic Forum. Business and government leaders are expected to descend on Davos in Switzerland next week for the annual event. Xolani Mbanjwa has the details.
Enoch Godongwana says South Africa will have one major objective at the World Economic Forum in Davos next week, and that is to attract investment to Africa's most industrialized nation. And Godongwana doesn't believe South Africa's case at the International Court of Justice may influence investors or how South Africa's delegation is perceived.
Insofar as the court case is concerned, I do not know why people would have an attitude to a country that uses multilateral institutions for settling disputes. Because those multilateral institutions have been set up by the United Nations for dispute settlement. Why then would it be seen to utilize that dispute settlement mechanism? In this case, the court case South Africa has chosen. I don't see anybody likely to making this as an issue in Davos.
Godongwana also says the South African team, made up of captains of industry and ministers, will not shy away from the challenges the country faces, including load shedding, crime, corruption, and logistic bottlenecks.
The key is investment. The investment with it comes growth. With growth, I get better revenues. That's our key focus, is to how do we go to that part of the world with that kind of platform, sell South Africa, and argue a better case for our country.
Electricity Minister Dr. Newzroom says among the priorities at WEF will be to garner investments for the National Transmission Company of South Africa, which has become the first of Eskom's 3 divisions to achieve legal separation.
Part of the conversations they will be taking up at Davos is to ensure that we are able to communicate with the potential private sector players to say that this is the route that we are taking for purposes of financing transmission and getting to have a sense or a gauge of their appetite to invest in that space. And of course, we'll come back to say this is the model that we'll be using to be able to accommodate private sector participation.
JSE CEO Dr. Leila Fourie has dismissed assertions that South Africa's capital markets are not as attractive as they used to be after a record number of companies delisted since 2020.
The concept of delistings in the public market is a global phenomenon. It's not peculiar only to South Africa. And in fact, South Africa has fared a lot better than many of their developed world counterparts. If we look at the stats between 2010 and 2022, Luxembourg Stock Exchange was down by 56%. Deutsche Börse was down by 36%, the London Stock Exchange was down by 33%, and the JSE was down by 23%. If we look at the market cap, which is really a very good indication of the value that is available for trade, 30 years ago, the JSE's market cap was 800 billion rand. It's now 19 trillion rand.
Godongwana believes the theme for this year's annual meeting, Rebuilding Trust, is appropriate considering the complexity associated with the domestic and transnational headwinds. He says the theme also speaks broadly about the priorities for this year, including achieving security and cooperation in a fractured world, creating growth and jobs, using artificial intelligence to drive safety and growth, and strategies around climate change and safety. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Xolani Mbanjwa in Johannesburg.